Ayo Music World, my name is Adi Dash and you're listening to Just Earworms. With me is Mana Vista's music superstar, Madhav Dantorti.
Podcast Nation, what's poppin'?
And with him is my very best friend and strawberry shake lover, Manish Malampati.
Yes, I do love me some strawberry shake.
Yup. Also, Madhav is my best friend. And so is today's special guest, Lil Uzi enthusiast and one of the biggest Eternal Atake fans that we have ever seen. In fact, when we first made our Instagram, the man texted us telling us that he has to be on the Uzi pod. So here he is, Aman Sidhu.
All right, thank you for having me on Just Earworms today. Yeah, I know. When I saw you guys like produce the Instagram page, I was like, you know what? I keep on annoying my siblings talking about Eternal Take and the levels that it's on. So I might as well get on this podcast. It got to a point where my sister sent me a meme where it was like something like "No pain tonight, just Eternal Take," and out of the blue, she just said, "This is you."
Damn.
So
I guess
yeah,
that's a start. That's a great start.
yeah.
And before we move on, we decided to start this program as a way to connect our love for music with something that we could share with our audience, like Aman, and now Aman is going to share with everyone else. In today's podcast, as I said, we're going to talk about Lil Uzi Vert's recent project, and he's rumored to be dropping another one. But this recent one, Eternal Take, we waited for it for 3 years. He went through disputes with his producer and his production like staff and all of that, and then he decided to sign with Rock Nation, and then finally we got Eternal Take, and a lot of people have been looking forward to Eternal Take, and then I think it lived up to the hype, at least for Uzi stands, who really appreciated what Uzi was able to put out for them. So let's ask him. Let's go to Aman. Aman, what do you think about this whole album, like as a whole? Like, what did you get out of it? Just being a Uzi stan and like wanting to get like new music content aside from the leaks and everything that Uzi that people put out about Uzi, like what did you first feel like when this album came
So when I listened to the album, I remember the morning it dropped, the 6th of March on Friday. I was in CSP. Not Fraser was giving a lecture, and I was like already on "You Better Move" that morning. Like I was tuning her out, listening to "You Better Move" the fifth track, and when I listened to it, right when you listen to Baby Pluto, and you hear this weird like beat, and it goes right into saying "Welcome to Eternal Take," and it just goes right
out?
into
Right,
singing.
right,
It's like this weird, like right away, I felt the energy of the album just because Uzi with the intro on every single project, whether it's Love Is Rage, Perfect Love Tape, Love Is Rage 2, uh, and just any project that's outside of Spotify, so on SoundCloud, he always
yeah,
has a strong intro, and you could feel right away like he was ready to go. He was ready to drop just drop amazing bars, and they were actually really creative as a whole. I
right,
was excited when I saw it in the first place, just because, first of all, the album cover it actually takes a lot from the original goal of the album. So this is gonna be kind of off from what I felt in the first place. I just want to establish a few things about this album specifically and what the symbolism is of the album cover. So the original connection to this called Heaven's Gate, where there's this
yeah,
guy. His name was Marshall Applewhite, cult leader. He claimed that he could take people's souls and transport them to heaven because there was a certain point where he could. There's a certain point in March where Heaven's Gate would open up and he could take them to a better place or paradise.
right,
So Uzi's trying to the original goal with that, for what Uzi was tying to that for the original Journal Take in 2018, was how he was seen as selling his soul. With how a lot of people felt that at times he didn't seem very happy in social media. He would do weird things like promote Love Is Rage to by calling himself the devil. People were like making this
yeah,
connection where when you say Lil Uzi Vert, it sounds like you're saying Lucifer. So
definitely, yeah,
the Heaven's Gate connection is very strong in this version of Eternal Take, because he wants to keep all of the soul selling there, and also the promise of paradise from his record label with Generation Now through Don Cannon and DJ Dramatic. So that was the original goal, what he was getting at, which led to the feud, and then a few leaks basically slowed down that version of it. So when I listened to the project, I realized he definitely went for a conceptual route because every single song flows right into each other. So with Baby Pluto, it's like this hyphy sort of like you're just going right into it. Amazing beat, just amazing thing to follow. Low main, it keeps it up. Silly Watch is just this very hard, has very hard verses, amazing like lines as a whole, and you feel the beat and you just really like it when you listen to it because Uzi's voice basically enhances almost any beat that it's on. And as a whole, I just feel that he did a good job of basically hiding a lot of things in this album through the skits that I
Yeah.
feel a lot of Uzi stands, like you said, would understand what he's getting at because the skits actually hold a lot of meaning in terms of the story itself. Uh, what I noticed right away was it was a lot about being in an unwanted situation, being abducted, being on his own and kind of wandering in space, and then having the pressure to drop this album. So that's something I picked up on by listening to it with the skits at the end of every song. And I feel that for people who are kind of casual fans, like they've only listened to Love is Rage 2, they've only listened to The Perfect Love Tape or a few other songs, or they came from listening to Sanguine Paradise, they wouldn't really understand this album. His goal was two things: make an album that would be quote unquote the greatest album ever, which I feel would be great, which he did for Uzi Stans, because there's actually a lot of symbolism, stories, and a lot of things that relate to Uzi in this.
Yeah.
While the other thing is, he kind of wants to keep the casual fans, I'd say, like Sanguine Paradise lovers, That's a Rap lovers, people who loved all of his hits that are platinum right now, away from the album. Because when I talked to a lot of people about the album, it's very polarized between the album was bad slash mid and the greatest album.
Yeah, like I feel like when you like you said, like if people don't understand like an artist's like perspective, they tend to like they they don't tend to like the songs that much in the album pretty much.
Yeah,
So like and it was also people I felt like were not satisfied with it because they waited for 2 years, and if you don't really understand what's happening with the whole album, they felt like, oh wow, like we waited for so long and this is what we got. We don't understand anything, so it's not that good. Also, I heard there are 18 songs on the album, and there was this thing that the first six songs were Lil Uzi Vert being like Baby Pluto, and then the
yeah,
next six being like him being
Orange
Renji, and then yeah, and then last six being him being Uzi. So like, what do you think about these like three different, I guess like three
personas.
different personas of Lil Uzi Vert? Like, what does that symbolize in this whole album? How does that come into play?
So I think I'm going to go from the end to the top. So I'll start with the last six tracks, or this
Yeah,
the Uzi part. For Uzi, at least when he's singing, I think it starts at Urgency when we get finally back to Uzi himself.
right.
That song, it has this weird like cascading water sound right before it starts on the song before it prices where it samples way back. I think
Yep.
that's Uzi feeling like he's reborn or almost like a new person. Because the problem for Uzi was that in 2019, out of nowhere, I think he was just actually just very sad for the first 6 months. Then out of nowhere, he started hyping up Futsal Shuffle, which like topped at number 5 on the Hot 100 Billboard charts. And Uzi being reborn was a lot of him just discovering himself, resetting everything, working on this new version of Eternal Take. And
Yep.
the hits that follow are basically him talking about the pressure that came after this like sort of new perspective, where he realized there's no way getting out of this. He has to drop out. So the skits go with him being reborn, him going on a call with someone and being like, yo, I just went through some crazy stuff. I have to drop this album. I don't even know. Nothing's making sense. So the persona that he's trying to get at is how 2019 he wasn't in a good place with record label disputes, losing money on EXO Tour Life. Just as an example, the song
Yep.
earned $4.5 million on all streaming platforms, Amazon Music, even YouTube, Spotify, and he only got 20% of it at $900,000, which he was very mad about because it's kind of an emotionally vulnerable song, I guess, for him, and he felt that he was cheated out with his with Generation Now. So Uzi's getting
Yeah.
at how the pressure's kind of like gonna make him implode almost, and that he basically just has to drop the album, and he feels there's no way getting out of it. So that's what I got from listening from Urgency to P2 and Puts on that way. Because in P2 at the end he says he appreciates you, and he basically disappears into some kind of UFO, and it seems almost like he's entering a place of solace of like I finally dropped Eternal Take. Here's the body of work. Please enjoy it for what I've done.
Cool. And then you talked about how like he put out like P2, and he had this like whole like frustrating like time with his producers, and like at the end of the album it's almost as if he's just satisfied that he put it out, more so than he doesn't care if you like it or not, but this is just something that he got off his chest pretty much. So if
Yeah, it's
like
more.
yeah, so if that's the case, like do you feel like the work he put out in this album, like you said, did it live up to what you expected it to be? Like what the storylines and everything did it live up to what you wanted it to be like?
So I feel that he actually did something really interesting. I see it as kind of like a social experiment almost, in that whenever I talk to like if I know someone's an Uzi fan and I ask them how Eternal Take, they automatically jump to saying it's a great album. I loved it. It flowed so well. They talk about the concepts. They talk about all that stuff. But then when I talk
Yeah.
to people like just an example, I know Uriel. I've talked to him about Uzi. I think he's only really liked Love
Right.
Is Rage 2 to my understanding, for example. And he said that like, oh, I only like P2 and Homecoming. I thought it was an okay album. The skits were okay. And it's not that he didn't see the depth as a whole. It's just that he wasn't as into Uzi. So I think what he did was he didn't want to make like the greatest trap rap album ever. He more so wanted to make something for his fans that have stuck with him for so long as the greatest album ever, and then more so for casual fans they can enjoy like P2, Low Main, and Baby Pluto that way and futsal just as something for them. But I feel like he tried to make the greatest album ever for his fans because there's like that storyline with the skits that connects everything over that.
Cool.
And
And
then, oh, go ahead.
yeah. And then like a lot of like when Manish and I first listened to Baby Pluto, I think, or it was like I guess my second or third time,
Yeah.
and we were waiting for that like beat to drop, and everyone was just there are a lot of memes made about it. The beat was not
Yeah.
dropping. What do you think about his execution as like just like in terms of like the Baby Pluto part of the album, the first six songs, like
Yeah.
it doesn't sound very like it's not like Uzi. Like this is nothing. This is nothing like nothing that we've seen from Uzi, but this is like completely different. So like, how do you think he executed the first six part songs on the album?
I think the first six were more so him experimenting with a lot of things. Just with like, for example, like You Better Move. He took the soundtrack, you know, you that we hear that weird like video game blaster noise at the very
Right.
start. It
Yeah.
apparently it's this game called Space Cadet. It's like a pinball game from like Windows 95 that Uzi used to play apparently. And there, for example, that was like one of the first songs I liked. He made like a Yu-Gi-Oh reference. It was something like, first he said, "I live my life like a cartoon. Reality is not my move." And then Blue Ezra Dragon, no, I will not lose. I don't know why, but for some reason, just with that, for example, it shows that
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of represents all the experimentation in the first six. So with that, with the You Better Move, he's sampling off a video game, and he's trying to show a little bit of a different side because I think this is when he actually started listening to a ton of Future because Future's first project ever was something called Pluto, I think, and he basically started dressing like Future back then, and he started getting like hyped by listening to Future. So I think the Baby Pluto persona is supposed to be this like hyped trap rap sort of Uzi that doesn't really like stray away from new things or he's willing to try new things as a whole. I think that's what he was getting at with the first six bars of showing something new and something fresh, which is what it was kind of expected maybe from Eternal Take. Because we always get the love songs, the heartbreak songs, the sad songs from Uzi and the hype songs. But I feel like the first six are so distinct from his entire song. So I think he was just trying to experiment and see it.
Cool. Manish, what about you? What do you think about the whole album as like just the body of work in itself?
Personally, like I before like listening to Eternal Take, I wasn't like a Mon level like fan. Like I was just like, okay, I Uzi, right? But
Yeah.
then like I listened to the album and like overall, it was just like it was like okay. Like I didn't hate it, but I didn't like think it was like the greatest album ever. Just like I just enjoyed some songs, but like thought others were like they didn't have like a good impression on me. So I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was just like another album, but I see clearly that it had a better impression on others. But like I think
Yeah,
that's how all music works.
yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Moses? Anything that you found very interesting? Any songs that you really like from the album?
Yeah, I think like in general, when I first listened to the album, I was like on and off about it. Like I like some songs, and then some songs kind of bored me. And then when he went out with like the whole part two with like the deluxe or
Oh,
whatever you want to call it,
oh,
I felt it was like kind of unnecessary because like the first original version that he already put out of the album, like to me at least, wasn't appealing. Maybe it's just because I'm not a big fan of like that type of rap style. You could say I do appreciate a lot of his music, like "Saying Me in Paradise." In like this album, I really like "Baby Pluto," and then a few other songs that, in general, like the album was decent. It was definitely like a well waited for album, but I wouldn't say it's like an album that really excited me, and like it's not like an album I would listen to on like, I guess you could say, repeat. But like there were definitely some songs that I really liked from the album, like as I said before, Baby Pluto, Celebration Station, and then Prices, Secure the Bag, Myron. So these are like some of the songs that I like, really liked in the album.
Hmm. Uh, and then for the entire album, like I had a question for you on like,
Yeah, go ahead.
he put out 16 tracks, and then the last two tracks he had already put out before that. So I remember him like putting out like one track at a time, and he was like building anticipation for Eternal Take. But like, what do you think his like whole like tactic, like his release tactic was to gain audience? Because some of the songs that he did put out as singles didn't show up on the
Album,
album
yeah.
itself. So like,
So something.
why do
Oh,
you
go
think he
ahead.
did
Yeah.
that? Yeah, go
So
ahead.
for new Paddock, he was supposed that was supposed to be the 2018 version of Futsal in terms of getting people to listen to Uzi and get on his page and just understand Uzi and get like a hypey song that people can play at parties, I guess.
Right.
Uh, in order to hype up the original album back in 2018. Then what happened was he basically had his label issues. He wasn't getting as much money, and he was just generally unhappy with everything going on. And the other thing was also the older version of Eternal Take. That entire album has leaked for like a long time. That's the other issue. So
Okay.
one leak can set you back. Like let's say if this version of Eternal Take was set up with the original 16 tracks, let's say Peace
Yep.
Do leaked, it would have delayed the entire album by 6 months probably. So
Wow.
that version of Eternal Take was more so lost because it kept on getting leaked over and over again. And one of the producers, I forgot his name, leaked the entire album sold. So for that rollout, the issue wasn't necessarily like Uzi trying to employ tactics. He was literally just getting stuff leaked. He was kind of getting attacked by a lot of things. Like there were a lot of things coming onto him that made it so that Eternal Take was just so much harder to put out. And then Sing in Paradise, and that's a wrap. This is actually, I think, very like I don't feel like a lot of people don't know this. So Uzi in 2019 wasn't already like in a very good place, and I can tie that back into the skits after this. But Sanguine Paradise and That's a Rack. The reason why those were released was that the day he dropped them, they were leaked maybe like 2 hours before that. So
Oh, okay.
he never planned to roll those out at all. He basically had to
Yeah.
release them to capitalize on all the investment, all the entire investment that he made onto those songs, just so he could make enough money off of it. And I think like Sanguine Paradise went 2 times platinum. That's a Rack did okay, but it didn't go platinum. So the issue with the rollout was also more so that he had a lot of turbulence just getting to this version of it. He had a lot of things stopping him. He had a lot of like issues going on. He just didn't want to record. Uh, and then he was just frustrated with everything going on. And for futsal, at least, that he basically produced as sort of a tactic of getting it maybe to work on TikTok because he made the entire dance for it. Because if you
Right.
can see Little Tekka with Ransom, Ransom was doing okay. Like, for example, Cole Bennett made the music video and it got 1 million views on the first day. But TikTok blew up Ransom and like threw Little Tekka into the mainstream essentially. So
Yeah.
that was his original goal with futsal because he made a dance with it and he was hyping up the dance with the song on in like November 2019.
Yep.
And then that way was actually a tactic of getting more pop listeners to get onto the Uzi hype train. Uh, because his goal was just make a song that's more pleasant, more like a happy song as a whole, as
Yeah.
opposed to maybe something like Sanguine Paradise where there's a little like raunchy stuff, a little more darker things. Sanguine Paradise, when I understood it, I thought it was like Sanguine as something that's bloody, and then Paradise being like something that's sort of like a little psychotic as an example. So he's trying to
Yeah.
like tone down that specific side of it.
Cool. Like as a avid fan of Lil Uzi, do you think is it frustrating as a fan to like see all these leaks? Like I know it's very frustrating for artists who get their songs leaked. Like they're not happy about it. But do you think as like a fan you feel the same way because you want like every song and every like piece of work that the artist is trying to put together to come out at once?
So I personally, I feel like I'm a little indifferent on it because I feel that at times I'm annoyed with the fact that it slows things down just because the artist can invest so much time in it and that entire investment can just be null void just because someone leaked it. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like I like cringe at it like, oh my gosh, people are actually like ruining this person's like career. Like there are a lot of things that are going wrong just because people want to make money. But then part of me is also like, if the leak is out there, I feel that the reason why I don't feel the need to listen to it because the issue with that is the artist never wanted to put it out for a certain reason. Like they didn't like the song, they listened to it, and they just like intuitively knew that it wasn't a good song, or the record label doesn't like the song as a whole, which is another thing sometimes. So I don't like the idea that people make money off of it and it delays things. But I also don't feel the need to like jump on leaks, just because
Yeah,
I feel that it kind of ruins the taste that you have for the artist. Because then you kind of see like eventually, if you listen to enough leaks, what if you just don't like the artist anymore because you've listened to so many like let's just say mediocre or bad songs.
right. And this is a question for everyone. Like, do you feel like artists that like I don't like when you look at like artists who like tend to have their music like songs like leaked more often than others, it's these like it's like Playboy Cardi, Lil Uzi, like artists who like try to take advantage of like the whole mainstream media, and they're not like you won't say these artists are like rappers per se, but these are like more of those like these are more hip hop like pop rappers. Like you won't classify these are like the as the rappers that are like OG rappers. Do you feel
Yeah.
like there's like there's a reason why these are the artists that tend to have their songs leaked more?
Oh, actually, I have a big explanation for that. So, what Uzi, Gunna, Playboy Cardi, and a lot of artists do is they'll go into a booth, they'll have a beat played from a producer, and they'll just freestyle on a song. I think Juice WRLD used to do this as well, where the producer plays a beat, they just freestyle on it. Then they have thousands of songs where they freestyled, and they splice the best snippets and just make a song off of that. So that's where a lot of leaks actually
Oh wow, I did not know about that. That's interesting.
come. Yeah.
So hmm, so if that like in that sense, like do you feel like then the artist shouldn't be mad that songs are getting leaked because it's pretty much them just like splicing and putting together a bunch of songs that they find to be like sonically like satisfying. Like do you feel like there's like a they're contradicting themselves because technically they're just doing this for fun. So if it does get leaked, it shouldn't harm them that much.
Yeah. So when it's those kind of songs where it's just a random freestyle, I think they're
Right.
not as vigilant on fixing the issue, reaching out to the person who actually got a hold of the leak, and like asking them, "What do you want? Give it back," stuff like that. But when it's like a finished song that they have on their hard drive at home or at their like new home in like a different state, 'cause they're working with their record label, or they want to be close to their record label, I think
Yeah.
that's when they actually go and like work to get it back essentially. So for example, there are like hundreds of I think like Playboy Cardi leaks out right now, but a lot of them he doesn't care about because they're not on like Whole Lotta Red, his next album, because they're like more freestyle. So he feels that if it's out there, it's out there. But they
Yeah.
care more about the finished songs that are. So yeah.
Got it. And for you, just Amon, like since you have, I'm pretty sure you've listened to the album a lot. Is there any
Mhm.
one particular song that you tend to like gravitate towards the most that you like the most?
Shoot, all right. This is kind of it's like I feel when I listen to Eternal Take, this is the first time like I've never had like one song that I've looped, never like skip and like I always play. Or like for example, like when I like Love Is Rage 2, the song that speaks to me the most or one that I like the most is Dark Queen. Because like for me personally, I don't think I've skipped that song in like the past 3 months, for example. But then with Eternal Take, I feel that it's more I feel like it's more of a conceptual album. So it's not really
Yeah.
made to have like hits and a few like songs just to fill in the gaps of the album. When I listen to it, I feel like it's a hit or miss for the person in that sometimes you either like the entire concept or it's just that you want to pick a few songs that you like and you just leave it at that. So for me, I just like the entire album because for me personally, when I listen to it, because I think the day it came out, I listened to it 4 times, which is kind of crazy. But because I wanted to pick up on everything. But when I listen to it, I like to listen to it start to finish just to see how well it flows together because every song has a certain part to it that carries over. So from Baby Pluto to Low Main to Silly Watch, and then when you go from Homecoming to I'm Sorry, that weird transition of Baby Pluto to Orenji. For me
Yeah.
personally, it's not that I gravitated towards a song; it's that I felt that it being a conceptual album. For me personally, I felt like it hit on every level that Uzi was trying to portray. And something that I actually want to talk about right now is actually the skits. Uh,
Yeah. Go for it.
so in the first 6 songs, we get these skits where the first skit in Baby Pluto, it's Uzi sitting in his house and he hears a UFO. He's like, "What is that?" which is followed by Lo Mein, where something from the UFO crashes and chases him. So I think this is used to represent like everything after the hype of EXO tour life, where he's kind of just on a more low key. He's in a more low key situation, and he's not trying to post stuff on social media. He has all this attention, and he's trying to get everything together. And it seems like it's some sort of external force that's like bearing down on him, like bashing on him, attacking him. So I think that's trying to symbolize like his record label disputes, and that he tried to, keep as much money as he could from EXO tour. He doesn't want to have a bad contract. He's trying to get out of it. But just that unwanted thing of his label basically like attacking on him and making going on and like release eternal take. We need you to build off this hype. I think that's what's kind of represented in the first two skits of the UFO circling and crashing. Uh, and then after a while, he gets abducted. So when you're abducted, it's more so. I guess the connotation of that is like you're literally forcibly taken away. So back in like 2018, I think Uzi was like, "I want to go back to 2013. I'm done with music. I'm not recording anymore." And he actually stopped recording music for 4 or 5 months. So I think the when you go from Silly Watch Pop and You Better Move when he's abducted, it's more so when he's so destroyed that he basically is just done with it. Because at a certain point, I think he was actually like depressed with everything going because there were so many like unwanted things happening, leaks, and him just getting kind of attacked by his record label. And at the time, then when you get to the orangey phase, it's him navigating through that like, displeasure. So in like I'm Sorry in Celebration Station, the skit there I believe is him being strapped down and him having to force himself out from that. It's like him being tied down to like a probing table, for example, I
Right.
think in like a UFO. So he tries to get himself off that table and he's trying to like keep whatever free will he has almost. And it's kind of getting at how he's like forced to sell his soul almost. Uh, right after that, it transitions into Uzi seeing something that he shouldn't have seen. If you look at the album cover, there are these three girls dressed in purple robes. The purple robes are reminiscent, not reminiscent, but they're sort of to symbolize something from Heaven's Gate, where any member that was where they committed this kind of dark, so that they had 28 members commit mass suicide to take their souls on a UFO to Heaven's Gate when it opened up. So
Wow.
Haley's comment in the top left corner of Eternal Take is supposed to represent the opening of Heaven's Gate or the promise of paradise. The UFO is kind of like the record label almost like taking him in an unwanted situation and forcing him to do things that he doesn't want to do, and him kind of imploding almost. And then the three girls are things that he's not supposed to know. So maybe like he learned something from his record label, and he's just really like concerned with what's going on and what's expected of him. And eventually, when he leaves the UFO, I believe on Prices Are Bust Me, it says you are now leaving EA, the dark world. So it's him basically getting out of that situation and getting over a Rock Nation in Jesus.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
then
That's
oh wait,
interesting.
there's still more. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So
Keep going, keep going.
yeah. So in Urgency, there's a weird like water. So have you guys played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild by any chance?
I don't know what that
I
is.
haven't. I don't have a
Switch.
Switch.
Oh, okay. So I'll be very quick. The game's basically main story is that Link is like near death, and he's thrown into this random like shrine where he's put in this pool of water to resurrect himself almost because he's in a near death state. So I think it's reminiscent of that, or it's kind of close to that. In that Urgency has this like weird flowing water at the start and end of the song, which is supposed to be some sort of like rebirth, reborn, like Uzi, where he's like realized new things. So it's kind of him getting at like how he's safer at Rock Nation, he's better at Rock Nation, he's reborn through Rock Nation, and then it basically gets into him on Secure the Bag right before P2 starts. He's like, I gotta drop this album. Everything's not making sense. I can't do anything anymore. And it's him realizing that, like Audie said at the start, he had to get this problem off his chest of releasing Eternal Take, getting the work out there. Because he was bugged for 2 years to release Eternal Take. He sees a fan and they're like, hey, when's Eternal Take dropping? He's like, next week. And then next week, nothing. And then P2 is him finally realizing he can get it away from himself. So he's like in a more prosperous situation of having Eternal Take finished, fixing this record label, being in a better mood as a whole, and just basically dropping Eternal Take and showing like this is the work that you guys waited for. I'm here
Wow.
to.
I mean, wow. That was a lot of like great information about the whole album. Do you okay? Like based off of all that you said, like how like I feel like everyone who like I think it's safe to assume that you are a huge fan of Uzi and you love how
Very big, yeah.
like yeah. So in that like sense, like do you feel like his music is like a way in which he connects with you guys like specifically? Like it's very hard for like as Madhav was saying, he isn't that fond of Uzi because he doesn't tend to understand what the music
Yeah.
really means. But then when it comes to someone who's like a very big fan of Uzi, like you are, do you feel like
Yeah.
this is a way that he talks to you guys and like we might criticize him for like, oh, the flow doesn't make any sense. I don't know what he's
Hmm.
talking about.
Definitely.
The bars are weak and all that. But do you feel like this is like his way of connecting to you guys and like like at the end of the day, it's like you guys are talking in a separate language and we're the idiots around here who don't really understand what's happening.
I mean, can't really say idiots because it's like
Yeah, I mean like
yeah, no, but
like yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you're getting it. You're getting it. It's easier to say that than it is to say. I know you're getting it.
yeah. So
I can,
cool.
yeah, no, that's what I see it as. It's more so that he's trying to talk to his fans. He's trying to show, like, for example, like when I talk to people about who love Eternal Take, I know that they know about, like they know about the entirety of Love Is Rage. They know about 1017 versus the World. They know about Purple Dots and his other projects that are like not on Spotify, and they can see the connection to the skits of like on being in an unwanted situation representing his record, the rebirth stage, the promise stage, and it's sort of like he tried. What Uzi does all the time is he does subtle things to hint at what he's getting at. For example, like P2, automatically that's run to part two of EXO Tour Life, and he doesn't want to say part two EXO Tour Life P2. He always does these things where he puts the smallest things. Where it's almost like how there's less is more the statement where you have less things to work with, you can analyze it more, understand it more.
Right.
He does like bare minimum as much depth as you want. That's basically what he does. Because that's what he did with skits, where people who like aren't as into Uzi, let's say, they're gonna brush over the skits like, oh, that's a pretty cool story that he put with Eternal Take. I don't really see the symbolism. I don't see what it is. But then someone like me who's like pretty much obsessed with Uzi, like I notice these things. I notice like from the past story of his past 3 years, 2017 to 18, it's the unwanted stage. 2018 to 19, it's lost in trying to figure out what's going on, and he releases Sanguine Paradise, and that's a wrap. But he's too lost to build off of that. And then 2019 to 2020 is the rebirth stage, the promise stage. So I feel like what he did was he did a great job of detailing the story over the past 3 years, and he uses that as a platform to give kind of Uzi fans the greatest album ever, or sort of an album that they would really enjoy. But then for I guess casual fans, the entirety of music listeners, he just wants to put out a few songs that they would like Futsal, Myron on the Deluxe, maybe Pluto Low Main. So his goal was more so, like you said, Audie, to speak to the fans more so than anything. So I see that, yeah. That's it.
And then like pretty much for the whole album, we don't see that many featured artists. Like, and if you look at the deluxe, like I think the 14 songs that he put out in the deluxe, like at least 8 or 9 of them have a feature artist like with it. So do you feel
Yeah.
like he left out features for like was it like did he do it for any particular reason because he was just trying to show his own story, or do you feel like he just didn't need any features in
So,
the whole album?
oh yeah. So something that I noticed, if you look at it like Uzi's entire discography, until Love Is Rage 2, Love Is Rage from Love Is Rage to Love Is Rage 2 in the 51 songs there, I think that's not including the deluxe of Love Is Rage 2. He has 7 total features. So I think for Eternal Take, at least in how he produces, he doesn't really like to like work with a lot of other artists because, for example, like Playboy Cardi, when they work on Woke Up Like This, Shoota, or yeah, like those songs, they seem
Yeah.
very like in sync, super happy, super pumped up to make those songs. But Uzi really doesn't like work with a lot of artists on a daily basis. It's like once in a while he'll work with an artist, but I think he just likes to be in his own zone and just record something that speaks to him. Uh, so, for example, if you look at like Love Is Rage 2, it's a lot about how his like fallout with Britney Bird. Like if you look at the song 444 plus 222, that's like a really big reference to like the Antichrist
Yeah.
symbols that people are labeling him for. Or you look at like Dark Queen, it's him talking about like something like that he holds very emotional. Or even like the way life goes, like thinking about overthinking. And he seems to have his own lane that he's created, and he wants to work with artists that he can. I don't think the word vibe, but it makes a lot of sense. Like he wants to work with artists that he intuitively knows will work well with. So I feel that with Eternal Take, his goal always has been just to use as little features as possible to put out a good body.
Cool. And that's I think that's definitely like just like from what you said about the whole album, it really makes sense like why he decided to he decided to cut down on the features. Like that makes sense. Manish, do you find any song in the album to be particularly interesting that you tend to like?
Personally, like I think like Madhav said, like I like a lot of songs that he does, and I also think like Urgency was really good. Bust Me, I like that one too. And honestly, I didn't really like You Better Move because I found it kind of corny. But like,
Oh,
yeah,
it's very, very corny. I liked it just for the video game sample. Like I was like, how do you put a video game sample in an album and it
yeah,
does
yeah, yeah.
somewhat well? Yeah,
Yeah, I liked I like the production on like most of these songs, but like sometimes like when you do like You Better Move with like the lyrics, like when I
it's
find it
very
corny, I just
yeah.
like yeah.
You just like yeah, I can see
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, like Low Main was a great one, Baby Pluto was a great one too. So yeah.
Oh, you know what's something that's kind of weird that I noticed? Orenji, when he was like in that phase, he made a lot of Naruto references, specifically to Nagato. So yeah, yeah. So I see Manish.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So something that I found interesting, just to like for Adi and Mada, uh, so Naruto, the final arc, it's basically this giant war against these like two entities who are extremely strong. Naruto basically wins the war with this one power move where he literally sends his energy to everybody and it powers them up to like levels that they've never felt before. So I thought that the goal of Orenji, when I first saw the Naruto connection, Orange Hair, I thought of that scene where Naruto basically empowers everybody and puts them in a state that they've never felt before. I think Orenji, his goal with Orenji, which he also said on Twitter, he said that Orenji's goal was to take the pain away from people, which is kind of dark. But I think like it was like a subtle connection of like Orenji's sort of like the pain part of Uzi. Because if you look at like the lyrics behind "I'm sorry," Chrome Heart Tags, "Bust Me," it's like about a girl that he first I'm sorry he messed with and made her feel worse. "Bust Me," it's like she used to not want me, now she wants me because I'm in this position. And Chrome Heart Tags is like I can't believe I used to like you. You're a terrible person. So I think that's kind of what Orenji was capturing. But I thought that Naruto connection was really interesting, but I just thought like it was more subtle than anything else. He didn't actually mean for it to be that in depth. And then Madhav, I have a quick question for you. Let's see. Okay. What is your least favorite song on the album? I'm just curious about
Okay, so I don't know if other people agree with me, but being a singer who listens to, I guess, I mean, I do listen to all types of genres, but when it comes, since I don't classify myself as a rapper,
this. Yeah.
although I listen to rap music, I cannot perform rap music. I'm not Manish. Manish can rap. I cannot rap. I can write lyrics and stuff. I can parodize stuff, but I cannot rap. I don't have that flow. So songs I listen to that stick in my mind easily are pop songs. And
Yeah.
when Uzi dropped that way,
Yeah.
I had no idea that it had a rap. It was based off of like the Backstreet Boys. I wanted that way.
Mm,
And
yeah.
when I heard that song, I was in distraught because he I don't even know how to explain what he did with that song, but it
He
was
like yeah.
quite a disaster after when like if you compare it to I understand that he's not trying to recreate the song itself, but like regardless of how he used it as an influence itself, um,
Mm.
it was disheartening, I guess you
I
could
can
say.
I can see that because I think even that way, the day it came out, it wasn't even that he planned to roll it out. I think that was also leaked, so he had to release it on the first. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You
I
guys
I
want me?
like
Yeah.
I like that way. Oh yeah, go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, you guys want me to tell you about Uzi's next planned project?
Yeah, definitely. That was gonna be my next question.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Uzi's basically in like December 2019. If you guys remember, like the futsal shuffle hype, everybody was playing that song. It kind of like hit number five on top. Yeah, hit number five on top Hot 100 Billboard charts. And Uzi was like all over social media, like saying things. One of the things that he said was, "I'm gonna treat 2016 like 2020." In 2016, he dropped Lil Uzi Vert versus the World One, with like Money Longer, You Was Right, and P's and Q's as like the biggest songs. The Perfect Love Tape with Do What I Want and Eraser Social as the big songs. And this one mixtape called 1017 versus the World, where him and Gucci Mane collaborated on like 7 songs. But he didn't put it
Okay.
on Spotify just because he knew it wouldn't do well, I think.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so so far in 2020, he's dropped 2 projects: Eternal Take and Little Uzi Vert vs. the World 2, which he also teased in 2018. So it's expected that he's supposed to drop a third project, and it's supposed to be the Perfect Love Tape 2. So I guess the evidence that stacks on it, there are a few like really like big things that hint that it's definitely gonna happen. The Perfect Love Tape was originally released on his birthday on 2016, July 31st, 2016. July 31st, 2020, this year is a Friday, which is the perfect day to drop an album because Fridays
Yeah.
people have less things to worry about and they'll just stream the album as much as they want. So that's the first connection. The second connection is back to the we're going to treat 2016 like 2020. So he needs to drop a third project to keep that pattern going, or that to to basically like not lie essentially. And he said that in 2019, 2020, he's never going to lie. So it's expected that he's supposed to drop the next project. And then one big thing is he made lyric videos for every song on Eternal Take and the Deluxe. So Lotus, the second song on the Deluxe Take, has a lyric video, and I forgot at what mark, but if you look at the Perfect Love Tape album cover, it has Uzi getting pulled in by 3 girls into this like weird dimension or a door, and in the lyric video for Lotus, it's him getting pulled in to the same kind of door, except it's only one girl, and it's Brittany Bird in a purple robe from Love vs. the World 2.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Hmm. That's damn. Okay. So I'll keep a lookout for this new Lil Uzi project on the 31st if it ends up dropping.
if it ends up dropping. Yeah.
Yep. And I have a quick question for you. I know you're a big Uzi fan. Did you do the futsal shuffle TikTok? Did you try it out?
I tried. I didn't do the TikTok, but I tried the futsal shuffle. I can get like the first like 2 or 3 moves, and then after that, I'm like kind of there's like a spin part where you have to like kind of squat on one leg and you spin very slowly, and you turn back to your original formation. Uh, I'm not gonna try that again for a long time. So yeah.
I feel you. Don't worry. Don't worry. Even I tried the futsal shuffle. I looked really bad, so it didn't go on my TikTok. But if you guys do want to follow me, I'll not mind it on TikTok. I have
All
zero
right.
videos, so yeah. And yeah, so I think we'll end it there. And if Uzi drops another project this summer or any time this year, next year, and if you're still doing the podcast, we'll definitely want him on back on to talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, Back then when I first listened to the Perfect Love tape, uh, I realized that Lil Uzi word was spelled. The abbreviation was
Yeah.
LUV, and then that's what.
LUV.
Yeah, and that's what I thought made me a great Uzi fan. But this, I don't think I compare with him on. So I'll just,
Okay. Audi. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. So I'll just place myself. I'll just place myself as a regular listener. And Aman, I guess you're the super fan. Yeah, and anything
Oh
you were gonna
yeah.
say?
Yeah. No. So here's the thing, though. I kind of obsess over. Like I literally like just as like a slight flex on my Instagram. I have this story thing posted where I'm a top 1% fan. I don't even know what that means. I think I just listened to so much Uzi that I like somehow hit the top 1% in like the region that I live, which Cupertino.
Wow.
So like
Okay.
yeah,
Damn.
I think that's like the thing is like my most listened to artist ever is basically Uzi. So that's the other thing. 'Cause I know Adi, you're a Post Malone fan, right?
Yeah, sure. I do like Post
Yeah, yeah. So you know more about Post Malone probably than I do. I legit have listened to like 4 songs.
Malone. I'll take that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so yeah, but no, Uzi is like my most listened to artist. Like I think like 2018 was the year I got onto Uzi because on New Paddock I saw on like a Naruto meme page that he had a Naruto line, and I
Yeah.
was like, an artist making a Naruto line that's clean, or Naruto bar that's clean? Yo, who is this guy? And then the other thing is also like just a small thing for why I got into Uzi. Before I even listened to hip hop, rap, pop, or even any kind of music, I used to always listen to video game soundtracks just because they always had like distinct beats and instrumentals. After I listened to New Paddock, I found other Uzi like songs, that had such distinct beats or distinct like instrumentals, and that's what's always drawn me to Uzi. Because like when you listen to Myron, you got the church bells. When you listen to Yes Sirski, it's a very 21 Savage beat. When you listen to Moon Relate, it's like spaced out. You know, he has like so many distinct like ways to just create songs. And that's just why I listen to him so
I respect that, and Uzi's a really great artist to be a fan of. Like he has catchy songs, and from what you explained to us today, he also has a really deep storyline behind his music. So that's really cool. And
much.
yeah, Madhav, Manish, you want to add something else?
Is there anything else to add? I think
Uh
Amon covered a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
a
that's fine.
meager, a mere mortal like me can't really add anything.
I guess that's facts. That's facts. Thank you, Aman, for coming on. It was really amazing just talking to you about Uzi and just like the artist in general and just the story behind him. Like I feel like a lot of people don't understand him because they don't know him as well as some of his other fans do, and it's really good to hear from a different perspective about
Yeah.
Uzi and just learning more about him. So thank
Yeah,
you
and I
so much.
appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to like be on a platform just to like share everything. So yeah,
No, anytime, anytime. If you want to talk
yeah,
about another Uzi album, we'll definitely find some time to do it. This is really fun.
yeah.
Uh,
No, legit. Wait, straight up. Like I'm not even trying to flex. Like I can explain the story. Love is rage to love is rage too. If you're down ever.
okay, we will definitely. I think I'm down for sure, and I know the others are as well. So if you next time, next month or the month after, if you find a slot, we'll definitely have you on for sure.
All right, sounds good.
Yep. Yep. And for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot more about Uzi. Definitely go stream Eternal Take. It's a really good album. It has a lot of catchy beats, and as Amon said, it also has a really good story behind it. And I hope you like and subscribe to this video. And until next time on Just Earworms.